Hello guys, welcome to the Yae Miko guide. Well, I'm going to go over what talents to level up, her best weapons, best artifacts, best teams, and her playstyles. Now Yae Miko is a very unique character that is mainly based on her elemental skill damage, and her elemental burst damage just helps her do a lot of damage at once and then reproc her skills. So I'm going to go over all the things on what you should do to play Yae Miko the best. So without further ado, let's get right onto the talents. So her normal attacks are a basic 3-hit electro damage combo, and her charge attack actually takes a long time to proc off, has a huge animation, but it can be cancelled by jumping, sprinting, to make it go by a little bit faster. But since she is a catalyst user, the stamina cost is 50, so I don't know if it's going to be too worth it for you to start charge attacking a lot. So her elemental skill lets you dash in the direction you're facing. Now each of these totems have a range around it, and they will actually attack opponents within that range. This skill actually has 3 charges, so you can use it 3 times repeatedly. And the more totems that are nearby, the more damage they will do. So if you look at the scaling, the base level for these totems are level 1, and they can go up to 2, 3, and that level 4 damage is only obtainable if you have a Constellation, which I'll talk about more in the Constellation tab of this video. And the duration of these totems is actually 14 seconds, with only a 4-second cooldown. So you can press this really fast, have 100% uptime, and you'll just have no problems keeping up the off-field damage. Now the way these work is when they link up together, if they're nearby, they'll actually get more rings on the totem, and that's when you know how much damage they're dealing. In order to do the most damage, you want to place these totems in a triangle formation, because if you place it in a straight line, only the one in the middle will be level 3, and the other 2 totems on the left and right will actually be only level 2. So when you're placing these totems, always make sure to place it in a triangle formation to make sure all of them link up with each other. Now this ability is pretty good because it allows for so much off-field DPS with Yae Miko, so you can place all the totems, switch to another character, do what you want, and then switch back to Yae Miko, do her burst, and then do it all over again. So Yae Miko's elemental skill is the main focus of a whole entire kit and what it's actually built around. Now her elemental burst has one of the best animations in the game in my opinion, but basically with this ability she'll do a giant lightning strike, and each totem that she's nearby will actually break that totem and do additional lightning strikes at the locations. So the initial lightning strike does pretty good damage, but the lightning strikes on the elemental skill are actually way higher than the base skill damage, so you always want to make sure you have 3 totems on field before you ever use this. Now the downside to this elemental burst, as you can see, has a 22-second cooldown and then a 90 energy cost. Which kinda sucks because her elemental skill does not generate particles that well. So you're basically going to have to pair up with an electro character if you have no constellations, because her constellation does actually help out with her energy problems. Her first passive also is when you break a totem with your elemental burst, it will actually reset the cooldown. So if you have all 3 totems on field and you use your burst nearby them, you can use all 3 of your elemental skills right after you use the burst as well. So you'll go triple elemental skill, elemental burst, and triple elemental skill will usually be your rotation. Her next passive is every point of elemental mastery Yae Miko has will actually increase her elemental skill damage by 0.15%. This does not affect the burst damage at all, so don't expect any more damage to come out of your burst if you want to build elemental mastery, but your elemental skill does get increased damage. Now depending on the way you want to play Yae Miko, you can either build this all around elemental mastery if you wanted to, or you can just think of this as a bonus. I'll go more into what that means once I talk about the artifacts in this video. Now let's go into Yae Miko's constellations, because her constellations are actually really good, to be honest. I don't see a bad constellation anywhere in here. Now her first constellation is where every time her elemental burst destroys a totem and does the extra lightning bolt, Yae Miko will actually give herself 8 elemental energy, which in total gives her 24 energy back after you use her burst if you have all the totems. This basically renders her burst to only have a 66 energy cost, and this massively helps her playstyle in the rotations, and opens up a few more teams so you don't have to be forced to use an electro character. So this one is mainly a huge quality of life change. Constellation 2 allows your elemental skill to actually reach level 4, because now their base level will be level 2, and when they're all linked up together they can get up to level 4. And the attack range of each of the totems is actually increased by 60%, so this gives more damage to your skill and allows them to hit from further range, so this is actually a really good constellation as well. Constellation 3 increases the scaling of the elemental skill. Her Constellation 4 is when her burst lightning hits opponents, everyone in the party will get an electro damage bonus of 20% for 5 seconds. So this is really nice because now this will increase her own damage, and then electro damage of other teammates like Fischl, Raiden, Shogun, Beidou. So this is definitely a good constellation to buff your whole entire team and herself. Constellation 5 increases the scaling of her burst. And then Constellation 6, her elemental skill attacks will actually ignore 60% of opponent's defense. Now this gives a huge damage buff for your Yae Miko's damage from an elemental skill, because ignoring 60% of defense is actually pretty huge because we already seen this with Fade and Shogun C2, so this could be a huge damage buff for all Yae Mikos. And there you go, that's just a quick overview of all of the constellations. All of the constellations are really nice. If you give constellation for Yae Miko, you will not be disappointed. Alright, now let's talk some weapons. There's actually a pretty good amount of weapons you can use if you want to, so I'm going to be going over all of those right now. Now I'm just going to go over this right now. Obviously her best in slot is the Kagura's Verity because that's her signature weapon, has a crit damage substat, and increases elemental skill damage up to 3 stacks, and when she has 3 stacks you can get 12% elemental damage bonus for all of them. So this is actually really good, but you can out-damage it if you have a Refinement 5 Wit Sith, but only if you also have a Refinement 1 Kagura's Verity as well. If you have a higher Refinement than Refinement 1 for the Verity, then you're going to out-damage the Wit Sith, but if you do have an R5 Wit Sith and R1 Kagura's Verity, then you might actually want to consider using the Wit Sith, but the Kagura's Verity passive is actually more reliable than the Wit Sith because it has no downtime and has no randomness. And then honestly, for all the other 5-star catalysts, I really don't recommend you use them. I think you'll be way better off to use the Wit Sith. Now Memory of Dust is good, but it does restrict your teams. Lost Play is really good because it has crit rate substat and a pretty good passive, but the way Yae Miko plays, you don't really stay on the field all too much unless you just really want to make a main DPS Yae Miko. And the Skyward Atlas, it's alright. It's not going to be a best in slot, but it's not bad for it either. But I'd actually recommend the Wit Sith more than this. Now since I've been saying Wit Sith most of this part, you already know that the best 4-star catalyst for Yae Miko is actually the Wit Sith. It has huge crit damage value from its substat, and its passive allows you to get attack, elemental damage bonus, or even elemental mastery. Now this book is really good because all of these buffs will actually help her a lot, but of course the attack percentage and the elemental damage bonuses by the Wit Sith are going to be more helpful than the elemental mastery. But the elemental mastery isn't also completely useless because it will increase the elemental skills damage by a lot. The only downside to this weapon is that it does have a cooldown and you have to kind of fix your rotations towards this weapon. The next best 4-star weapon you could actually win is a Solar Pearl because it has a crit rate substat, which is very helpful. And his passive is actually really helpful because her normal attacks will increase elemental skill and burst damage for 20 seconds. And the elemental skill and burst hits will actually increase normal attack damage by 20% for 6 seconds. So this could be really helpful if you have a main DPS Yae Miko because your elemental skills and burst will do more damage and it'll just be really helpful. But you could also use this as an off-field sub DPS. You just gotta make sure when you switch her and before you do her burst, you will have to do at least one normal attack to hit somebody and then use it all. Which doesn't affect the rotation all that much, so you should be completely fine. You just gotta keep in mind that when you switch back to Yae Miko, when you're off your DPS, do a normal attack, then pop a burst, then use elemental skills, and then switch off. Now all the other options I'm about to talk about for 4 stars are actually all free to play options, so you have a lot of choices of weapons. The first one I actually want to talk about is the Ultron Eye, which is actually the event that's going on right now to get it at Refinement 5. This weapon won't necessarily give you a crap ton of damage potential or boost your damage by a lot, but it will fix a good amount of your energy recharge problems if you don't have C1 Yae Miko. Because after using the elemental skill, her energy recharge will be increased by 48% for 10 seconds, which is going to be really helpful, get your burst more reliably. So I think this is also one of the better options. Don't expect a huge damage buff or anything, but expect your rotations to flow a little bit easier and allow you to do her burst more often. And if you want to play main DPS Yae Miko, then Dodoko Tails is actually pretty nice because you will be doing a lot of normal attacks and charge attacks, so it could be pretty helpful. Next you have the Mappa Mare, which is actually craftable. It has an elemental mastery substat, which is pretty good for elemental skill damage. And when she triggers an elemental reaction, she'll gain an 8% elemental damage bonus for 10 seconds for a max of 2 stacks. So it has a good passive and good substats, but you have to be on field to trigger this effect. So you're mainly going to be getting this effect when you use like your burst or while you're using your elemental skills. Unless you're a main DPS Yae Miko, then you should be able to get this passive reliably. And then the Hakushin Wing has an energy recharge substat, which is really helpful for her. And if Yae Miko makes an electro reaction, the other element involved will actually get a 10% damage bonus for the whole entire party, and that actually goes up to 20% at Refinement 5. Now this could be pretty good, but once again you do have to be on field in order to trigger this. So it could be a little wacky, but if you have none of these other weapons, then this might be a pretty alright option for you. So there we go, those are all the weapons I recommend. So for the 5 stars, I definitely recommend Kaguya's Verity or Lost Prayer if you're running a main DPS Yae Miko. And then for the 4-star Waking, I definitely say Witsith, then Solar Pearl, then Oswin's Eye, then Mappa Mare, and then Hakushin Ring. So yeah, that's all for the weapons. Now let's talk artifacts. Now, Yae Miko is really similar to Zhao, where she basically doesn't have any artifact set that really fits her the best. So for Yae Miko, you're mainly going to want to prioritize her substats. Now, since there's so many combinations, I'm actually going to put all the combinations on screen of all the 2-piece combinations you can use with Yae Miko. You can use Gladiator, Shimenawa, Threatening Fury, Emblem of Severed Fate, Wanderer's Troop, Nobody's Obliged. Any combinations of these artifact sets on screen will be perfectly fine. Just prioritize the substats of what you want. Now, if you're looking for the most damage, the 2-piece artifact sets that give you the most damage are 2-piece Gladiators, 2-piece Shimenawas, and 2-piece Thundering Fury. Those 3 artifact combinations will give you the most damage overall, and all the other ones are mainly for prioritizing your substats, which I really recommend. Now, there are actually some 4-piece options that you may want to consider. For example, if you want a more burst damage oriented Yae Miko, you can actually want 4-piece Emblem of Severed Fate, because the energy recharge is really helpful for the 2-piece, and a burst will do more damage based off of energy recharge. So it could be pretty helpful if you want to build a lot of energy recharge on your Yae Miko, or just have passive more burst damage. Now you could also want 4-piece Thunder Soother, but I don't really recommend it all too much unless you really want to run like a mono Electro team, because it does get a little finicky once you start proccing off a lot of reactions and you can't really reliably keep on the Electro all the time. So this could be considered, but I don't really recommend it. And then if you want more of a support Yae Miko, you could run 4-piece Noblesse. I do recommend running it on someone else other than Yae Miko, but if you don't have a Noblesse user on your team already, then you could run this set as well. You can also run 4-piece Tenacity because you could actually actively give attack to your whole entire team because her elemental skills will always be hitting if you have them up. So this is actually a good option as well if you want to run a support-based Yae Miko. Now that we talk about the sets, let's talk about the stats and substats. For Yae Miko, since her burst is 90 energy cost, if you're running her with another Electro character, it is advised that you run at least 150 to 160% energy recharge. So if you're really lacking energy recharge, you could run energy recharge Sans, but try to get a good amount of energy recharge from your substats already. Now for the most damage, you can actually run attack percentage or elemental mastery. If you run elemental mastery Sans, you're prioritizing your skill damage over everything else. So if you want a really good off-field DPS Yae Miko, then you could consider running Elemental Mastery for the Sans. This will also increase the damage of all the reactions from the totems as well, so it's not a bad idea. But if you're someone like me who wants to use a normal attacks, burst, and a skill, then attack percentage is definitely the way to go to utilize the whole entire kit nicely. So Elemental Mastery if you want to prioritize the elemental skills, attack percentage if you want to prioritize the whole entire kit, and energy recharge if you're really lacking it. But if you're running the Oswin's Eye, then it's really not necessary. Her goblet should be Electro damage bonus, unless of course you want to run a full Elemental Mastery build, so you could also switch this out with Elemental Mastery. And then your circuit should be crit rate or crit damage, unless once again you want to run a full Elemental Mastery build. And then for the substats, it's like the usual DPS character where you want crit damage, crit rate, attack percentage, but now you actually want to get a good amount of energy recharge. And then Elemental Mastery isn't a bad thing either because once again it will increase the skill damage. And there we go, that's all for the artifacts. Now let's go into teams for Yae Miko. Now once again, that 90 burst energy cost is actually going to make you really want to pair up an Electro character with your Yae Miko. So pairing her up with Fischl, Range Shogun, and even Beidou can be really helpful because Fischl is the best bounty for Electro characters in the game, and then Raiden has good particle generation from an elemental skill as well, so she's actually a good option. And then while your Raiden doesn't have her burst, Yae Miko can be using her elemental skills and her elemental burst as well, and then switch back to Raiden to make it a good flow. And then Beidou is really good because she also generates a good amount of particles, and then also you can switch this out for like Lisa, Kudosara, and if you want to get a little jiggy with it, you can actually use Electro main character because she's really good for funneling in Electro particles and increasing the energy recharge of her teammates as well. A main DPS Yae Miko could be really good in Taser comms because Suko's Kazuha or Venti with the Virides of Villanueva set will actually reduce Electro resistance. Then Xingqiu is really good at just poking off a lot of Hydro damage, and then Fischl's here to battery up your Yae Miko. You could also replace Xingqiu with like Kokomi or another Hydro character if you want. Another one of the teams I'm seeing constantly is actually a Hyper K Yae Miko with Kujosawa, Sukos or Kazuha, and then of course Bennett. Kujosawa helps out with the energy of your Yae Miko, and this team will just help your Yae Miko do insane damage throughout the whole entire time. And then this Yae Miko Raiden team can be really nice because Raiden Shogun can be the main DPS, and when your Raiden Shogun doesn't have her burst, you can be on Yae Miko doing elemental skills, elemental burst, and then switch back to Raiden, do her burst, do a lot of damage, have Bennett buffing everyone, Sukos reducing resistance, and it's just a really good overall team. So she's really good to pair up with other electro characters and people who just need off-field DPS. So if you have a main DPS and you just feel like you want some off-field DPS, Yae Miko can be really good for that. If you have an electro team, she could be good for that. If you have a taser comp, she'd be good for that. She could actually fit in a good amount of teams. I think you guys know what time it is. I think it's time for a little showcase. But before I do, I'm gonna of course show off all my Yae Miko stats. Now my Yae Miko isn't the best build in the game, but I think she is pretty good. So she has an attack of 2,129, elemental mastery at 98, crit weight of 55%, crit damage of 235%, energy recharge of 146%, and all the way down here, electro damage bonus of 46.6%. I do have her at 2-piece gladiators because of course I have been prioritizing the substats over the sets. She's at C0 and her talents are 6, 7, 7. I want to show off a weighted Yae Miko team, and I also want to show off a main DPS Yae Miko team. So first let's do the weighted Yae Miko team. So when the battle starts, I'm just going to place all of her totems immediately and then switch off of her because that's just what she does best. Because now I have a whole lot of off-field DPS, and now while my Raiden's in a burst, my Yae Miko does all that damage and I'm just over here chilling. And now as you can see, now I have my Yae Miko's burst, proc all of the E's, and then use her burst, boink, and I completely missed. So I have all my elemental skills in a triangle formation, swirl up the Electro, and I'm just gonna keep doing it honestly. Make sure I get some more energy particles for my Raiden. And then while my Raiden's in a burst, do all the, and he blocked everything. Why does he hate me right now? Anyway, I'm gonna do all that damage right there, swirl it up, pop the burst, boom, 27k, 27k, then 34k is if those crit. That's actually a huge amount of damage. Swirl it up again, and I just do the whole entire combo again. And slice! Oh! Well, yeah, that's actually a really good team right there. Oh my, that actually went way better than I was expecting. Okay, now I have on the main DPS Yae Miko team because I just really want to show off how she would be like as a main DPS as well, because I think it's pretty fun. So I'm going to place all of her totems and then switch off just to make sure that my other characters get to shine and help out with the DPS as well. And I'm going to lure him over towards the totem, bop, switch Yae Miko, and boink, 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 and do all that.
Eternity.
Okay, so there you go. That was a very scuff showcase. Well, that's all for today's video. I hope you guys enjoyed. Hope you guys know what talents to level up, weapons, artifacts, and teams to put her in. I think she's really fun and really unique, and she fits into a good amount of playstyles. I've seen some people say that she's underwhelming. I think she's pretty good in my opinion, and it's up to you to decide whether she's OP, just alright, or underwhelming based on your account. And that's basically all for today's video. I hope you guys enjoyed, and I'll see you guys in the next one.